Sekeres Price from Wall Center, and today's Bodog poll question: who are you most anxious to see? You can vote for Philip Hronek, Nils Höglander, Danila Klimovich, Aiden McDonough, at Sekeres and Price on Twitter. Bodog, your source, free casino games, poker strategy, and sports odds. I'm back on the NCAA tournament for the Bodog line of the day. I just didn't like the Big Ten as a conference this year. It was Purdue and a whole bunch of also-rans. Maryland, they play well at home and nowhere else. I'm going to take West Virginia -2 on your Bodog line of the day. Here he is, Tuesday regular from the Province and Post Media. It's Patrick Johnson. PJ, back with Sekeres and Price. How you doing?
Hi, hello. Yes, I'm well. How are we doing? Good.
Super. Before we get on to Aiden McDonough and Andre Kuzmenko and Brock Boeser and others, big game tonight. Canucks in Dallas. Well, it's big for Dallas. They're leading the division. And I see Bally Sports previewing it with the two superstars from each side. Victoria's Jamie Benn and Vancouver's Jacob Pedersen. See, we had asked last week, who's more underrated, Pedersen or Hughes? I continue to hear his name mispronounced, and now just his first name gotten wrong, PJ.
Yeah. I mean, I think the
they are
best
going bankrupt. Perhaps the Czech editors are no longer employed there by Bally's.
I think the best theory is that this is someone who was just thinking of Jacob Peterson. I don't even know his last name. Who is a former Dallas star, who is also Swedish. But yeah, I don't know.
They're all the same, right? Yeah. Yeah. My guess is Bally Sports is 2 feet out the door.
Yeah, they got the right photo, at least. It is number 40 for the Vancouver Canucks.
I know. I looked at it. I was like, no, that is him. He's done that.
Answer me the poll. Now, Höglander and Klimovich can't be recalled outside of an emergency basis from here forward. But, hey, we're asking who you're anxious to see. They apply that way. Hronek, Höglander, Klimovich, McDonough. What says you?
Well, I think I want to see Hronek, honestly. Like, he's the guy they traded for. They spent a huge amount of draft capital. Still don't understand why they had to do this now, but he's the guy I want to see because, so much of next year hangs on him being a massive impact player. It's pretty simple.
Moving right along. Aiden McDonough, what are your thoughts and expectations after hearing the young man yesterday and knowing that he's going to get a good run of NHL games here?
Well, I mean, I've talked to him off and on over the years. Super nice kid. Like,
I've heard he's really smart.
Really sharp. Yeah. Really, another one like that.
We're talking Brendan Gaunt's level sort of thinker sort of thing. Maybe not Brendan Gaunt's performer, hopefully, but...
Hey, Brendan Gaunt's has had an NHL career.
Yes.
You do worse than that. He's a player who knows. I think I like the sort of response Cam Robinson sent me yesterday when I sort of said, listen, the Canucks, I think we're always very confident. Anytime I asked Ryan Johnson, he's like, we're going to sign. We're going to sign. We're going to sign. Stop asking, basically. No, and they like it. And they like the attributes he brings. Big goal, big game player. But as Cam pointed out, it takes him a moment to load that shot up. He's got a great shot. He's a highly effective power play player. The question, as ever, is: do you do anything else? Are you competent enough to be? Are you competent enough to be an effective player? If you really only have one trick. I mean, Alex Chason made a whole NHL career out of that, essentially. So. I guess it's sort of how do you feel about Alex Chason's career in the end? Mm-hmm. The skating, I think, are all the obvious comparables between those two as well. And both very smart guys who ended up playing college in the Northeast.
I think Cam had this in his little scouting report, and it flies in the face a little bit of the skating critique, but he says he's a tenacious forechecker. So, I don't know that I would have attached that to Chason. So he may not be the most mobile, but if there's a ferociousness to his energy, that can make up for some of it, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And then, it's about what you do with what you have. And Justin Bailey is a great skater, and we've got a lot of Justin Bailey the last couple seasons. And, in the end, he moved on, and we remember Justin Bailey. So just because you're a great skater, Griffin Molino being the most famous example, perhaps, of this in the last 10 years of a guy who just had nothing else. So, I think you can teach the skating. Bo Horvat obviously being the best example in sort of the last decade of a player who had questions about skating, but worked on it. I don't think Aiden McDonough's going to turn out to be Bo Horvat, but certainly, you can see why the bet was made in the first place as a seventh round pick. This was a swing for the fences pick, and they're hopeful it still is. They're hopeful that they've got something here.
Obviously, we're not going to mess with Kuzmenko down low or Pettersson or Miller on the dots, but is there opportunity in the bumper spot for McDonough, or is that just too tough a road to hoe?
Sure. At this point, anything's wide open. I think in the end, he is a guy. Certainly his natural talent is, I think, shooting is as a shooter. But yeah, maybe that's something there. Absolutely. I mean, you've got to throw the guy in there to see if he can do it. The successful coaches accept risk and they try guys like that. So maybe it is something there. I mean, it's a position that, Horvat did very well. It's a guy that the thing about it that people often don't understand is it's a retrieval role. Like net front isn't really the retrieval role. The person in the bumper is the guy that's supposed to go in the corner. To collect the puck and cycle it back. And that is certainly a McDonough trait. He is a very good down low player. It was 3 years ago now, the beam pot I was at. And, it was one of those ones that stood out. He was very good in the corners. He took him a moment or two to get there, but once he was there and he was around the puck, like he's a big boy. He's Sekeresian in his size. And he knows how to win the puck back.
Sekeresian.
Okay.
And I sure hope he's a lot lighter than this one. First step quickness.
Frame.
Also
we'll talk
not
about
my
frame.
strength.
Let's talk about frame.
Also not my strength. I ask, is there going to be opportunity? And look, some of it may depend on what happens with Brock Boeser. That was quite a challenge thrown to him by Rick Tocchet on Saturday. And gosh, when I hear the head coach say, boy, I really hope he lets us, be a part of his offseason training, talking about the Canucks staff, I sort of wonder, why hasn't he already? But what did you make of what the coach had to say about these final 17 games for Brock Boeser this season?
Well, in the end, it's real talk. There's the guy that laid down the gauntlet. And, he had a nice chat with Kuz. Kuz had a good Q&A with him, I thought, and went up yesterday on Monday. And, talked about... I think there's an element of frustration in him personally because he's never been able to be fully healthy. He's a couple times now maybe rushed back because he gets anxious. He admitted maybe he should have waited another week. He wanted to open the season. Probably shouldn't have, but you're also, it is that dynamic that it is up to the player, but also what's the team doing? Like, what? And, I think this comes back to the turnover in medical staff. I think not just in terms of sort of treatment, but just in terms of relationship with the players. Like, I know that the last staff was somewhat maligned, but like John Sanderson had a really good relationship with those guys, and, if he was around, would he have said, Brock, I don't think I think you maybe need another, couple of games. Like, let's wait a week. Did this group feel confident enough to do that? But at the end of the day, the player hasn't produced. He doesn't have enough goals. He wanted to score 30 goals. He's not going to score 30 goals. And, he's had moments where he's done a lot. He still, I think, is a very effective player, but he's being paid to score goals as a second-line winger. And a second-line winger needs to be scoring 20, 25 goals, and he's not going to hit that again this year. And 2 years ago, the terrible 2020-21 season, he was their best player. He was their most consistent player. He did a lot for that group through their COVID, all that. He was a very useful player on that team.
In a bad division that we've determined since then that it was not true NHL level of hockey.
Yeah, but he was there. He did a lot for a not very good team. And, So it is a challenge, and it should be. He's a veteran player. Like that's the other thing. He's 26. Like it's not like he literally is a veteran winger, Brock Boeser. Like that's how I write him in my stories now. It didn't actually surprise me all that much. It was obviously the details, like you said, Matt. Like, yeah, okay. I mean, I think there's been question marks in the past about sort of. I mean, I think Brock thinks he has a good routine in the summer, but I think you now have a new group that's come in. And they're kind of like, oh, is that how it goes? I mean, they've talked a lot about that with everybody. That's the other thing I would say is that Brett Boeser, this is a big summer is not, been applied only to Boeser. A lot of the young guys that's been applied to, they've talked a lot about that. There seems to be a belief that they have an approach that they think is going to help. Whether that's in terms of just a bunch of power skating or a new weight program or what have you, they seem to believe that there's something that I've heard it from Ryan Johnston about several players. That there's something that they think they can change and how these guys prepare for the season. Every coach talks about fitness, so I'm never that high on it. Everybody comes and says, "My guys aren't fit enough." Well, Travis Green said that, and Bruce Bruto said that, and Rick talking.
Everybody always says that. I'm getting a little sick and tired of it. Every sport, every coach.
My guys aren't fit enough. Like,
no.
What?
No, yeah, your fitness regime, that's the only one that works, right? Everybody else's it doesn't work. It's crazy.
So, I think in the end, for Boeser, we can see it. The skating has always been a criticism. And if you can try to imagine Brock Boeser 5% quicker, 2% quicker, I think that would make a difference. And, maybe there is something you can still...
Is there rehabilitating the relationship between club and player?
I don't know. I think certainly it was a big... I don't want to say grow up is wrong, but it was a big year for a relationship for sure, because this is a player that really likes it here. This is a team that brought him to the NHL. He had some success, but things have turned over now, and it's not the same old group. And I think there's a someone said this long ago that every coach has only so many words to say, and I think on the flip side that can happen to players. So there certainly was a lot of talk behind the scenes, even from his camp, that maybe a fresh start was needed. So I don't know. We'll see. You're right. I think the question now is like, can the Canucks extract any trade value in him? Certainly there were talks. I think the thing that went under the radar, and I mentioned that my understanding is there were some talks with Pittsburgh, like that did happen. But you look at, say, like I think I mentioned this last week. You look at the Granlund trade. They picked up Granlund. Granlund's a $5 million player. Brock Boeser is a $6.5 million player. You kind of split. You look at the difference, and you're like, okay, well, in the end, did Pittsburgh try to get them to retain? And Canucks said, no, we want to move this player at full freight, and nobody's picking up this player at full freight. So
that's exactly it, Patrick. That they're not willing to eat money on Boeser. Maybe they're willing to take some contract back, right? Yeah. Perhaps even a contract that the other side doesn't view as particularly desirable. But I think they've made it clear they're not going to eat on Boeser. And I sort of wonder, particularly when Tocchet throws in that, hey, maybe he'll have a change of heart, whether it's here or somewhere else, he's got to get better. Whether that sort of door opening, like, okay, kid, your agent went and shopped you. There was no deal to be made. You've got to wrap your head around being here next year for the full year.
Yeah.
Because, maybe they'll eat in the final year of the deal, but I'm not sure they're going to eat this coming off season on Boeser, unless it's money coming back the other way.
Yeah, it's just, I think, yeah, exactly. It's, and I think even the buyout question, it's just like, it's like talking about OEL. Like, I think and Blake got upset last week. It's like we just got out, they're just about to get out from dead money, and now they're going to turn around and put more dead money on the cap. Like, I don't think it's there. And I think there's still enough in the player. You want more goals, but there's still enough in the player that you could do a lot worse. That's the other thing. People always forget. You do have to dress an NHL team, right? Like, you need NHL players. He is an NHL player. He just has been underwhelming.
Couple of things, at the risk of rankling Blake further, because
no one wants to rankle me.
I do believe they will buy out Oliver Ekman-Larsson in the summer.
Sure.
maybe dead money is now just viewed as the cost of doing business, particularly when you have an interventionist owner. And you show me the outs without moving Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Because Tyler Myers getting that bonus on September 15th makes things a whole lot more problematic in terms of moving Tyler Myers. And look, I'd rather buy out OEL than buy out Connor Garland. At least to me, Garland's got a chance to be a contributor on your team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is an incredibly sad statement about where things have ended up with Ekman-Larsson, because first of all, he's a really nice guy, and second of all, he's had a good career. Like, he's been a great career. There were times when there was a lot of hype. Now, was some of that hype because he played in a market where nobody watched him? Perhaps in hindsight, but certainly he was a very, very prominent player in this league, and he is a shadow of that player. And it became tough to watch before he got hurt. I mean, maybe there's a Robidaw Island story here. Maybe they managed that somehow, but
and Patrick, they've been better without him.
Yeah.
Like, some of these AHL call-ups have just come in and played a less, and I understand in some cases it's in a whole lot fewer minutes and in easier assignments than OEL. But it's been a simpler, more straightforward, less panicky game.
It's essentially a harm reduction story, right? Like, they still have their bad moments defensively, but they have fewer. I mean, one of the problems was, especially in the Boudreaux, was that they couldn't get out of their own zone. And you make a turnover, you get trapped, you get tired, and it just compounds upon itself. And the fact is that especially Willan and I would say Brisebois have done a better job of finding breakouts, finding that low forward. I mean, Rick Tocchet mentioned to me the other day about talking. He said people are louder, and maybe that's true as well. It certainly made me laugh, because anybody who's ever played, beer league hockey knows that your teammates need to talk more. They never talk enough. So if the NHL players aren't talking enough, I'm like, what are we even doing here? But the idea that you have these two guys who, one of whom is sort of in now prove it mode with Brisebois, and another guy in Willan, who certainly has played at the NHL level and has a knowledge of what it takes. Whether he can continue to do it is a different question. But the fact that those two guys have done a better job than OEL and Riley Stillman, to be honest, so that says everything right there.
We were asking yesterday on the poll question, Kuzmenko's rookie season here with the Canucks, compare and contrast with Bure and Pettersson's rookie seasons. Now, they were Calder eligible. He is not. But you take a look at the totals, Patrick, and Kuz is right there with them for goals and points, and is likely going to exceed both of them.
Yeah,
with a decent close to the year. Your thoughts? Is this the best rookie season, even if it isn't Calder eligible, in Canucks history?
I mean, I did appreciate Cam's point. Wouldn't help if you were actually a rookie.
Let's reset this again, Blake, for our friend who needs a lesson here in English.
Do you know the word rookie is actually in the dictionary?
Yes.
It says a professional in his first year with the team.
The NHL has no purview over
Gary
that
Bettman
word.
doesn't rewrite the dictionary, actually.
Exactly. He's not allowed to have control over the Oxford English. Anything hockey in North America, sure.
I've heard fans are pretty happy with the way he writes the dictionary. So,
Fans have never been happier.
Okay, under that definition, it's fantastic. I still think Bure, because he flew out of a cannon,
right,
is more exciting. It's.
Were you there? You were there, probably, huh?
No,
of course,
I was a young man.
Of course he was.
I was there. I lit the fuse.
Hey, and always remember, if something seems amiss in the NHL, Frank Luntz did a super secret fan survey that only Gary has access to, and really the fans love it.
It's been proven, yeah.
And of course, it's Frank Luntz.
Of course, it's Frank Luntz, and we can't share the details with you because it's proprietary for Frank Luntz and his process.
How many listeners even know who Frank Luntz is? Does Blake know who Frank Luntz is?
I don't think I do, no.
He's just a GOP. He's a group focus group guy.
Republican strategist, focus group guy who came up with a lot of the sort of messaging over the last
not Trump
10 to 15. No, not the Trump messaging, but like
everything
the Tea
else.
Party. Yeah, like the Tea Party stuff and all of the the rest of it. A really smart guy, incidentally, when you hear him as a talking head. And has done work for the NHL in the past. Remember, somebody stole one of the books or one of the tests that, or some of the focus group material, and got it out into the open, and Gary had to apologize. And,
I
Frank
mean, why
was
wouldn't you?
devastated that his super secret process was out there. Anyways, wonderful stuff, sir. Thank you for your time. All the best. We will catch up next Tuesday.
All right. See you guys.
See you.